and welcome back to On the Workbench. Today we're taking a look at a sewage rated pump switch from LevelGuard. There's a couple different varieties of this, and this is the one that's rated for a septic pit or a sludge pit for use in likely a basement bathroom. So I've already cut open a couple of the seals here, so let's see what you get in the box with this. In the box you get a band clamp, hose clamp, a screw type 1. We get our user manual and another band clamp and our float switch, or our switch, and that's it out of the box. So what this is supposed to be a solid state single one-piece switch that will activate either a sump pump or a sludge pit pump. This is the one that's the commercial rated one, and it was the only one I could find out of their family that was rated for use in a sludge pit. I've got a float switch right now in my sludge pit in my basement bathroom that's on about a 12-inch tether, and the ball kind of floats up and down, and that's failed, and I need to replace it. And so I was looking for options. I could buy a new one of those. You could buy one that has a little buoy that slides up and down. Thought about that. Worried about those getting clogged or getting trapped, because right now the other problem with the little buoyant one on the tether is that it has a tendency to be able to get trapped between the plumbing for the pit and the sidewall and the pump itself. And so with this, there's no moving parts, which attracted me to it. Now the price was not that attractive at about $120, $130, somewhere in that range. I paid, I think it's like about $128, give or take. Bought this from Zoro. Also found it on Amazon. Amazon had the non-sump pump one, I'm sorry, the non-sludge pit one, or the not commercial one from Amazon Prime. But I thought about putting that one in my sludge pit, and I thought for a few extra bucks I might as well get the one that's actually rated for a sludge pit. And so what we got here is we've got these clamps here, and I actually saw in the pictures online of people using zip ties to hold this onto their the pipe that is exiting their pit. But it looks like you also have the option of these metal clamps to go around it. So if you look at the back side of this here, we've got some grooves that are cut out here to be able to saddle this around your exit pipe that comes out of the top of your pump. And then we've got this pass-through switch here, so you plug in your pump to the back side here. This plugs into the wall, and then when the water gets up, right here is your switch point. Then here's an overflow point here where it trips it again a different time, and here's your low point down here. And so it'll turn off when it gets at or below that line there. So you don't want to put this all the way to the bottom of your pit. You got to be careful because you want to make sure that your pump never runs dry. And so we've got quite a few feet of cord here. This should have about 10 feet of cord. If we look at the cord here, this is a 14 American wire gauge cord. And hopefully that's is at least as long as or longer than the cord for your pump itself. And reading more in the manual about this, there's a couple little tidbits here I thought are useful to point out. It looks like this actually has the ability to learn for how long it needs to be on for the pump to bring the water from the switch point down below the low point here. And it'll attempt to learn and then make adjustments for it that initially it'll remain on until it drops below or 13 seconds maximum. But it'll try to, apparently it's smart enough to figure it out. But going into that, one of the things that this obviously then requires is this is going to have a little bit of a steady state current draw as this operates in order to actually be actively detecting water coming into contact with this mechanism. So there will be a little bit of a current drain on it, but my hope is that the protection that this affords by having no moving parts more than offsets the constant current drain, which should probably be at most maybe $1 or $2 or $3 a year, depending upon your electric rates. A couple of specs here looking in the manual here. The current switch or current draw while in operation 1.3 millivolts. So that's 0.0013 amps. That milli means to take an amp and divide it by 1,000. This is good for up to a 20 amp draw on the piggyback switch. This is for use with 120 volt AC, not for use with 220. And this is using a solid state field effect sensor. A couple other tidbits here. In this case here is about a 10-inch range. And let's get out the tape measure here and measure this up. A couple other environmental things here. good between 0 and 50 degrees Celsius. It would be nice if they actually put that in Fahrenheit here for the US market. So if you look at the switch here, the length of the switch here is just a touch over 9 1/4 inches. The width of this switch is 2 1/4 inches. And then the distance from the switch point on until the switch off is 6 inches. So keep that in mind with your pit when you're trying to measure to see if this is the right switch for you. There are a couple different models that have some different lengths to it. So you have to check out the specs for that. This is just for the commercial rated one that I bought. There's a few other options, so you should check out the rest of their lineup on that. So now we're going to test this out. We're going to obviously undo the cord here. You probably want to leave some of this other safety precautions on the end of your cord that goes into the wall end. The manual advises to use this with a GFCI protected outlet because obviously this is meant to be around water, or whether or not it's clean water or dirty water obviously varies. And so now to test this here in the garage, because I don't want to test this in my septic or my sump pit, is I've got 2 buckets here. On the right here is a bucket of relatively clean water. Now I've just got a submersible utility pump in it, and a hose coming out of that into the other bucket that I should drain into. And then I'll be able to slide the switch up and down to be able to hopefully activate it, to be able to turn off and on to verify that it does work, and you can see it in action. So the first thing is going to be able to piggyback the pump into it. This is the same thing whether it's this utility pump or it's your other pump in your sump pit or otherwise. And then we're going to run this, and I'm going to submerge this. I'm going to actually have it close to the top up here, sitting on my pump. So it's not ready to run yet. So it should be in the off position. Then I'm going to come back up here on the bench. Then I'm going to plug in the switch combination. No beeping, no noise. This is good. What I'm going to do is adjust the switch so now it goes below the line. Hopefully you can see this if I turn this around. I think maybe you can see it. Here's the magic line in question right here. I lift it up out of the water, no problem. There's actually still a little bit of residual moisture there on that part there. Now let me just drop this down and we'll see what happens. Yep, you can see it definitely activated the other pump. And there's water above it. Let's see if we can splash a little water on it and see what happens. Okay, we got splashing some water on the front, on the back, nothing. So that's good. A little bit of splashing won't affect it. From what I can tell, just obviously a little cursory here. We'll put this back down again. And so that's the switch in action. Now our next test is going to be to check to see what the draw is on this when it's not being active. So to check for amperage draw on this, what I've got here is I got an AC line splitter, then the piggyback of the switch, which is right here on the workbench, so it's not in any water right now. And the pump, which is actually submerged in water. And then this AC line splitter here has my amp meter connected to it. This is going through the times 10, so whatever reading we get here on the screen, we got to divide by 10. Because that adds a 10x multiplier effect to it. And if I move this around right, you can see there's a red light that comes on there. Let me zoom in here just a bit, indicating that you can see that the non-contact voltage light is coming on. So you can tell that's active. And our reading is actually showing 0.00 amps. And so maybe the amp pole, when it's not in use, is further out beyond 2 decimal places. I'm just not able to read down to millivolts for what that might possibly be when it is out of the water. Keep in mind this is only rated for up to 10 amps. So that's just something to keep in mind, that it looks like, yeah, this has some standby residual usage, but it doesn't look like it's anything that's going to register very high on the list. And so now my next step is going to be to install this in my pit. I'm not going to show you that on this video, but I just want to show you a little bit about this LevelGuard switch because I didn't see a lot of information out there whenever I bought mine. And one of the other reasons I bought mine specifically and why I chose this was because, at least in my case, this looked like this would be easy to retrofit and to be able to have with minimal obstructions in the pit. I could drop it in, attach it, run the cord out, and not have to take apart my plumbing to be able to extract a larger or more complicated switch unit, because my pump itself actually still works just fine. I don't need to replace that, and even if I do replace it, I can still keep this. And so this is a look at the LevelGuard solid state pump switch. I hope you found this video useful and have a great day. Bye.